Let's go ahead and call the Senate to order. Sergeant Arms will please secure the chamber doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, Senators, on this beautiful March 6th, actually it's not so beautiful, it's still a little rainy, huh? Yeah. It's a midday. We are so pleased to have Pastor Jermaine Turner from Trinity Evangelical Lutheran Church in Joppa, Maryland, guest of the distinguished senator from the 7th District. Please rise for the invocation.
Good morning to you all. May I invite you to please pray with me. Almighty and merciful God, you are the Lord of all nations and the source of all wisdom and justice. From you comes every good and perfect gift, and apart from you, we can do nothing. We thank you for this nation, for its liberties, and for the calling you have entrusted to those who serve here. Grant to these senators steady hearts and clear minds. Give them patience in debate, integrity in decision, and courage to pursue what is right, even when it's difficult. Guard them from pride and from fear. Deliver them from division that wounds and from ambition that blinds. Plant within them a deep concern for the weak, the forgotten, and the voiceless. Gracious God, you have established governing authorities for the good of society. Therefore, I ask that you would bless the work done in this chamber today. Let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. May truth be spoken with clarity and disagreement handled with honor. Protect those who defend our nation at home and abroad. Comfort families who bear heavy burdens, and grant that all deliberations may serve the cause of peace. Finally, God, remind us that our hope does not rest in human strength, but in your steadfast love, revealed to us in your holy name. Amen.
Recognize a senator from the 7th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Pastor Turner for coming down today, fighting traffic that was 97, was a little tough today. She's been with Trinity Lutheran Church for 14 years, and I want to give a quick shout out to her. She took a school that had been vacant and has opened it up for the Arrows School, which actually deals with autistic children, and has made an amazing transition there and doing an incredible job for our community and for the autistic community. So I want to thank her, and I ask that her prayer be journalized.
Without objection, most certainly, we will journalize her invocation and thank her for her wonderful work and heartfelt work. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 43 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now again in session. Let's see, do we have any resolutions today? Does not appear we do. Do we have introductions? No, I have my own introduction. I have a apprentice shadow today. Was off of school and so was told he's coming to work. So my son Caleb Ferguson, if we could give him a little welcome. He's very thrilled to be here. Excellent. All right, anything else before we jump into work today? Okay, we're going to get right into it.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Senator from Baltimore County.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd like to welcome the young men from the St. Paul's School of Baltimore who are here visiting and shadowing. I think they were just over in the house. Now they are, and the young women.
Yes.
St. Paul's School for girls and for boys. So in the 11th District, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Excellent. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Very good. All right. Any further introductions? Okay. If not, so we consider the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. We have a little bit of unfinished business today. Let's start with a special order calendar number 26. 26. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 538, Senator McCrae, Baltimore City Raffles Organizations affiliated with professional baseball and football teams. Bill is on second reading and open to amendment.
All right. Let's see. The bill's on second reader, open to amendment. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 538 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Let's hold on the third readers for a moment now and get through some of the early ones here. We've got introduction of Senate bills. This is calendar 44. Clerk will read the bills.
Senate Bill 997, Senator Jennings, retail supply of electricity and gas rules.
Majority Leader moves to be considered the reading of the bills. They'll be referred to the Rules Committee. We've hit 1,000. We are at 1,000 bills as of today. All right, we are at Senate Bill Calendar 45. Clerk will read the resolution.
Senate Joint Resolution Number 5, Senator Reedy, Frontemporal Degeneration Awareness Week rules.
All right, the resolution will be referred to the Rules Committee. We have some bond initiatives. This is calendar number 36. Clerk will read the bond initiatives.
Number 1, Senator Benson, Boys and Girls Club, Concord Elementary, Budget and Taxation.
Mr. President.
Majority Leader moves so we consider the reading of the bond initiatives. They are being referred to the Capital Budget Subcommittee. Recognize the Chair of the Capital Budget.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, we're getting to a certain point with the capital budget that we are simply not going to be able to fund LBIs that are introduced at a certain date. And part of that is coming from staff because we've got to process it and everything. So I would just say if there's any LBIs that need to come in, please get them in as soon as possible. 1 is for staff tracking. 2 is for Department of Legislative Services as well. So please, as a favor to the subcommittee, please do that. And I know you want to represent, I know you're doing a great job representing your constituents, but at this point it's just a staff bandwidth issue and a bandwidth issue for me. So thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Senator. All right, let's go to, we have some House bills that are headed our way. This is calendar 12. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 80, Delegate Vogel, Landlord and Tenant Residential Leases Fee
Majority Leader moves
Disclosures.
so we consider the reading of the bills. They'll be referred to their appropriate standing committees. Appears we have supplemental budget. Message from the executive. Clerk will read the message.
Dear Mr. President, pursuant to the authority conferred on me by Article 3, Section 52, Subsection 5 of the Constitution of Maryland, and in accordance with the consent of the House of Delegates duly granted, I hereby submit Supplemental Budget Number 1 to Senate Bill 282, House Bill 390 in the form of an amendment to the budget for the fiscal new year, ending in June 30, 2027. Supplemental Budget Number 1 affects previously estimated funds available for budget operations as shown in the following summary statement. Sincerely, Wes Moore, Governor.
All right, message having been read is ordered journalized, and the supplemental budget will be referred to the the Budget and Taxation Committee for incorporation into FY27 budget. Let's go to layover calendar. Actually, Senators, that the budget supplemental budget will be available on it should be on the desks and then also available on the floor system. So. Not on the desk, not printed. It'll be on the floor system in other materials in the budget. All right, let's go to layover calendar number 9. Let's see if we're ready to take this one up. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 108, Chair, Education, Energy, and the Environment Committee, Environment, Water Resources, and Wetlands Enforcement. Question is on the adoption of the 2 amendments offered from the floor by Senator Hershey.
All right, question is on the floor amendments from the Minority Leader. Recognizing the Minority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If I could, as I mentioned before when we were closing out the conversation yesterday, we had a number of messages and emails going back and forth with the department on really trying to find a solution to this. So if I could withdraw this amendment, please, and I do have a substitute amendment to offer, please.
All right, the Senator has withdrawn a prior floor amendment and has a further amendment. The pages will collect and distribute the Senator's amendment. And Senator, if you could just give us one moment to get it both withdrawn and up on the board.
Thank you.
All right, recognizing the maker of the amendment.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Somewhat similar to yesterday in our conversations about Title 16 in this legislation, this amendment sticks with that process and removes it. It also adds some conforming language and some language also that was requested that dealt with severability of the bill in its entirety. So again, Mr. President, I think as I've spoken with the floor leader and the chair of the committee that this is going to be accepted. I just want to say on behalf of all of us that had concerns about this, we greatly appreciate the opportunity to work with the committee on this. We appreciate the floor leader's fierce defense of the committee product, and we know that that's what's supposed to happen here when we come down. But at the same time, this is the whole body and not just the committee, and sometimes differences are recognized, and we do appreciate their willingness to compromise on this, and I think that this is certainly a testament to your leadership and the process here in the Senate and allowing things to change as we see fit. So with that, Mr. President, I ask that we move the amendment.
All right, senators, move the amendment. Thank you, Senator. Let's hear from the floor leader on the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We also appreciate the collaboration with the minority leader and MDE and accept this as a favorable amendment.
Excellent. All right, great. Favorable amendment. Any objections from the floor? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. I always like to see those things get worked out. Any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 108 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. All right, let's go to budget and tax. We have second readers. This is report number 5. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 328, Senator Folden, property tax credit, disabled or fallen public safety officer alterations, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the senator from the 47th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we know that when public safety officials put their lives on the line, and many times, infrequently, but every time it's a tragedy if they give the ultimate sacrifice, which is their life. But their families are also a part of that. And what this piece of legislation does is identify a hole where as a family that wasn't able to get the benefit that they should be able to get, and this piece of legislation closes that hole. So Senate Bill 328, as amended, makes changes to the local option property tax credit for disabled or fallen public safety officer or judicial officer. The amended bill alters the definition of fallen public safety officer or judicial officer for the purpose of expanding eligibility to disabled public safety officers who have died regardless of the cause of death. It also removes the current requirement that the dwelling must have been acquired within 10 years and authorizes a county or municipal corporation to provide for any limitation on the number of years, and authorizes a county or municipal corporation to grant by law a credit for a newly acquired subsequent dwelling by the same proportion as the credit reduced the property taxes on the former dwelling. There are 2 amendments. The first amendment is technical as co-sponsors. The second amendment alters the subsequent dwelling proportional transfer provision to be authorizing for counties and municipal corporations rather than required, and strikes the language that separated out judicial officers. Move adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Yes, recognize the senator from the 28th District on the amendments.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Question for the floor leader.
To yield. Senator may proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Floor Leader. This bill, is it authorizing legislation for the counties to?
That is correct.
Authorize. Okay, and are they authorized? What percentage of the property tax bill are they authorized to go up to?
The local setback.
I'm sorry.
The local setback.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that term, local setback.
So it's basically the amount of that is associated with that local county and or the municipality. If you know how we have those local charges on those taxes, and so they are given the option to reduce that amount.
Okay, so I'm trying to process it in some kind of way I understand. So if someone's property tax is say $10,000 per year, is it possible to have a, I guess, local setback of the entire amount?
No, it would just only be for the portion of it that is that is in the control of the local, the county and or municipality.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right. Question remains on the 2 amendments. Recognize the senator from District 40.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the floor leader yield? I'm trying to figure out, the bill is introduced, it struck judicial officer, right? But then you guys put it back in as an amendment.
Yes, we did.
Okay, I thought I was following it right. And what is a judicial officer? Is it just the judge, or is there other members, other staff that encompass the judicial officer?
It would include either a judge or a clerk.
Okay,
It
and
would be the officer, judicial officer.
this bill also covers correctional officers as well?
Yes.
Okay, and I guess lastly, the public safety officer, we're talking about like frontline, like police officers, whatever, firefighters and things of that nature. Is that
Yes.
true? Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any further discussion on the two amendments? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 328 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 587, Senator Gazzone, Maryland Patient Safety Center Fund funding, favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the chair of the committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a mandate. It mandates the governor to include in the annual budget appropriation of $1 million to the Maryland Patient Safety Center Fund for fiscal 2027 and thereafter. This is a critical unit, I think, and I think, quite frankly, we inadvertently made a mistake last year and removed it from the mandate status. This is really a very critical part of our healthcare system that patients' safety is considered at all times, and these folks really monitor that and work towards that. There is one amendment to add sponsors to the bill. Move adoption of the amendment and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment, the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 587 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 765, Senator Zucker, property taxes, tax sales, air protection program, and tax credits, favorable with three amendments.
Recognize the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Senate Bill 765 is to help ensure that homes stay within families. Right now, what happens is if you have a home that's passed on, that heir has to pay the property taxes all up front, and that disproportionately affects people in lower income areas. I wanted to salute the senator from District 45. This has really been his one of his main focuses. He's provided me the opportunity to sponsor this because the cross-file is Delegate Ann Kaiser, and she and I have never sponsored a bill together. So thank you, Senator. Appreciate it. It's also a great piece of legislation. Not only does it make sure that that homes stay within the families, but it also ensures that there's a protection fund set up to help with legal fees and probate, and as well as it changes the name of the actual fund, and also ensures that they may be able to qualify for the homestead tax credit, which they currently can't do. There are two amendments. One adds sponsors, and the other one changes the name of the fund. I'd move the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 765 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 767, Senator Ferguson, property tax credit for commercial buildings rented to small businesses, favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the senator from District 3 is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this is a pro-economic development bill that's specifically targeted to small businesses. It's enabling legislation that authorizes county and municipal governments to grant a property tax credit for a commercial building that is rented or rented to own to a small business located in the arts and entertainment district or a designated Maryland Main Street community. In addition, this bill offers additional flexibility to local government by allowing them to determine the amount and duration of the tax credit, additional eligibility for the criteria for the tax credit, application procedures for the tax credit, and any other provisions that are necessary to carry out the tax credit. There is one amendment, and that adds Baltimore Main Street and any other designated business improvement district. I move favorable on the adoption of the amendment and the committee report.
Sounds like a great bill. Move for the adoption of the one committee amendment, the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 767 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. All right, let's go to special order calendar number 24. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 503, Senator King, Growing Family Child Care Opportunities Program funding. Question is on the adoption of the favorable report.
Question is on the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussions of the report? Any discussions of the report? Any objections to the report? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 503 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Next, we have special order calendar number 25. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 519, Senator King, Earned Tax Credit Assistance Program Implementation Delay and Study. Question is on the adoption of the favorable report.
All right, question is on the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion of the report? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 519 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Let's go to special order number 27. Oh, wait a second. Let's see. That one is third reading. Let's hold on to special order. Let's get, where are we? Madam Secretary, can we ring the bells, please? If we could do a quorum call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. President.
All right. Has everyone recorded their presence? Almost. The clerk will take the call. With 44 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is still in session. Let's go back to our unfinished business, the one that's the first third reading calendar. This is 26. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 540, Chair, Judicial Proceedings, Home Detention Monitoring Agencies, Promotion and Solicitation of Businesses, Prohibition.
Senate Bill 540 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 540, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 544, Chair, Judicial Proceedings, Courtroom Security, Minimum Security Standard. This bill is on third reading, final passage.
Senate Bill 544 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 544, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 578, Senator James, Public Safety, Department of State Police, Police-Initiated Towing Alterations.
Senate Bill 578 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 578, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 581, Senator Jennings, Department of Information Technology, Statewide Information Technology Master Plan Reporting.
Senate Bill 581 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Everyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 581 have received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 634, Chair, Judicial Proceedings, Office of the State Prosecutor, Investigation of Threats, Judges.
Senate Bill 634 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 634, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 638, Senator Quarterman, Natural Resources, Maryland Heritage Areas Authority Funding and Grants.
Senate Bill 638 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 638, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 852, Anne Arundel County Senators, Anne Arundel County Alcoholic Beverages, Barbershop, and Beauty Salon License.
Senate Bill 852 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 852 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. I guess the question is it for the person cutting the hair or getting the hair cut? Could go the wrong way, you know. All right, clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 897, Cecil County Senators, Cecil County Alcoholic Beverages, Alteration of License Quota.
Senate Bill 897 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 897, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Let's go to third reading calendar number 27. Clerk will read the first bill. God bless you.
Senate Bill 69, Senator Kagan, Nonprofit Organizations, Navigator Terminations Provisions, Repeal.
Senate Bill 69 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 69 have received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 177, Senator West, Criminal Law, Obstruction, or Interference with Exercise of Religious Beliefs, Prohibition.
Senate Bill 177 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 177 have received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 241, Senator Augustine, Election Law, Individuals Released from State Correctional Facilities, Automatic Restoration of Voter Registration.
Senate Bill 241 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 241, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 323, Senator Smith, Juvenile Court, Jurisdiction, Detention, and Confinement, Youth Recharging Reform Act.
Senate Bill 323 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 323, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 776, Senator Smith, Commission on the House of Reformation and the Instruction for Colored Children Establishment.
Senate Bill 776 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, The clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 776, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Let's go to that special order calendar. Number 27, clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 439, Senator Jackson, Employment Discrimination, Fire and Rescue, Public Safety Employees, Use of Medical Cannabis. The bill is on third reading for final passage.
Senate Bill 439. Yes, I recognize Senator from District 4.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I want to thank I do have a couple questions for the bill sponsor, but before I do that, I want to thank the body and the chamber for the good dialogue yesterday. And listening to the pastor's comments this morning, and during the invocation, she made a very profound statement for today's dialogue, and that was that we handle disagreements with honor. So I want to point out that this bill is about an off-duty conduct that gets brought potentially into on-duty performance. Off-duty conduct being brought into on-duty performance. And so what ended up happening is, in the past 24 hours, the State Firefighters Association has decided to take on a character assassination of mine as though I somehow don't support public safety. So I will stand here today and ask any of you, I put my record up against anybody in this chamber on where I stand with public safety and the performance and protection of them in the line of their duties. To give a little clarity for those that aren't aware, the comments that were made about trying to lighten the situation about a responder showing up high is a very real concern of mine. That's not our everyday men and women. So, having given some clarity to that, they chose escalation instead of discussion. So I'm going to continue the discussion here today. And I would like to ask if the floor leader would yield for some questions.
Questions for the floor leader. Senator may proceed.
So yesterday, we determined that there is no measurable standard to quantify whether or not the impairment of an individual who has ingested cannabis. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is it a fair yesterday, you also made a comment that we allow for them to have opioids. And I want to be clear, the difference between opioids and what this bill does, opioids are prescribed and monitored by a doctor with oversight to ensure no addictive things are happening subsequently, versus this, which is simply a note that would allow them to buy cannabis and consume it off duty.
Well, medical cannabis is also prescribed by a physician.
Is it prescribed or is it given a note? Because it's also recreational.
I'm going to yield the floor to the senator from the 12th district.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to yield the floor to the senator from the 12th district.
Senator from the 12th district on the question from the senator.
Sure,
Well,
happy to
welcome
answer
to the discussion.
Of course. Your question was about the
Opiates
question,
are
the
prescribed.
question was about opioids prescribed. So opioids are prescribed, right? So they're a controlled and dangerous substance, so they need to be prescribed. Cannabis is not prescribed per se. It can be recommended by a physician or other provider.
Thank you. That was the answer I was looking for. So there's a difference. One that's prescribed is overseen and monitored by a physician for dependency and addictive reactions. Is that fair?
I think any medication or any substance that's being used by a patient is monitored by a provider.
Not
right?
marijuana.
So marijuana can be used recreationally, right?
Correct.
And but if marijuana is being used for medicinal purposes, this is medical cannabis, that the provider, even though it's not, prescribing is a legal term, right? So a provider does not prescribe per se, because that's a legal term. Because of federal laws, the use of the term prescribing is restricted. But in this instance, they're being recommended. They're being recommended, and so the provider is following that patient who may be using medical cannabis.
Thank you for that. So again, to clarify, opiates that were brought up yesterday are prescribed, cannabis not prescribed. That's the only answer I need.
From a legal standpoint, that's correct. But they are monitored by if you're using cannabis for medicinal purposes, you are monitored by a provider, by a physician or other provider.
Thank you. Okay, can I have the floor lead? Can you yield back to the floor leader?
Sure.
He might be calling you back up. I apologize.
So just remember, only one senator can be has the floor at a time, and so there's one question to the body at any given moment. There can't be multiple questions, and so there can only be one individual who has the floor. Ask the question, is then yielded to the person answering the question, and we will go back and forth. But only one member has the floor at a time. So, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Per Maryland law, is marijuana still a Schedule I drug? And federal law, or federal law?
Federal law. I'm going to yield to the senator from the 12th district.
Senator from the 12th district on the...
Yes, it's federal law, but yes, marijuana currently is still Schedule I. There are discussions to move it, yes.
So what are the effects or the impacts of marijuana or cannabis on a person who consumes it? Because there's different levels of THC, which is the impairing component, is that correct? So what would be so if someone's on an opioid that's prescribed, there is scientifically determined percentages that are exactly put into the pills or tablets that are set for certain grams of treatment. Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay. Is there the same structural breakdown within cannabis during consumption, ingesting into your body, that an opiate performs? Because there is a lack of standardization, there is a lack of proper percentages like we're talking about opiates. So there's not as exact in the scientific terms for impairment.
I don't think that's accurate. I think the medical cannabis, particularly the medical cannabis, and a lot of cannabis now is being tested for levels of THC. You know, we had in Senate Finance the opportunity to visit a farm.
Mr. President, I'm having a hard time hearing.
Agreed. Senators, please, if we could take side conversations off the floor, please. Thank you.
So, those of us on Senate Finance had an opportunity to visit a cannabis farm over the interim, and they go through a lot of vigorous testing of those products. They go out for independent testing. It is measured for levels of THC, for safety, and for quality. And so I would venture to say that our medical cannabis program is probably a very high standard and high quality that it's being held to.
But there is no scientific standard of what each one's going to perform at because it is a plant.
I think there's a scientific standard by which the amount of THC may generate a therapeutic effect.
So can we scientifically put to a percentage, like we do in opiates and other scheduled drugs, a scientifically percentage within a smoke or a drug that is consumed by ingesting or inhaling the smoke off of it?
There would be...
The carcinogens, I should say. I apologize.
It's not always all carcinogen. You don't have to smoke marijuana either. You can ingest it otherwise, of which the carcinogenic effect is much lower.
I agree. I was just asking about that specific ingestion style.
Right. So every type of cannabis will generate a therapeutic effect, right? And so depending on the potency of the THC and the type of THC that's present in the substance being ingested or consumed, you'll have a different therapeutic effect. But I think it's important to note that the therapeutic effect that's a separate issue from impairment, right? And so I know you've been focused on impairment as a concern. Obviously, all of us are.
Right.
But anytime you consume a substance, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are impaired by the time you get to a job.
Sure. But we put a timeline ahead of this, 12-hour lead time. So what would be the signs and symptoms of impairment for ingesting cannabis?
The signs and symptoms of ingesting cannabis. You might have bloodshot eyes. You may be,
or I guess what are the
nausea,
effects?
vomiting. You may be a little more lethargic. Those types of symptoms.
Okay. So more like depressant type effects? Slowing your reaction time?
It could lead to slowing of some reaction time. It's not necessarily, I think, considered a depressant.
Okay. So yesterday, I'll just stay here because before I go back to the floor leader, yesterday you mentioned that clinicians in Maryland, that these firefighters that are watching this or evaluating this when they come to work, that they're also considered in some ways clinicians. Is that, did I misunderstand you yesterday, or is that what you said?
When you have first responders coming to a scene, they're making a clinical judgment. They're
Okay.
making a judgment whether that person needs to be transported to the hospital, whether they're not, whether they're lucid or not, whether they're conscious or not. I think they're also potentially, I think they are able to make a judgment as to whether someone's impaired or not. 'Cause
Okay.
First responders make that judgment all the time.
Well, first responders don't make, I mean, that requires a drug recognition expert, a DRE.
It does not require a drug. What they're gauging in this instance is impairment. Impairment does not require a drug recognition expert to gauge impairment.
Are clinicians allowed in the state under COMAR to use cannabis?
I don't think there's anything in COMAR that restricts a physician, just like any other individual, from using cannabis.
So your answer is no, that you're in COMAR, there's nothing that prohibits a clinician from utilizing cannabis.
I don't believe so.
Okay. They definitely can't be under the impairment. A physician cannot be under the impairment while administering care.
Well, there are a lot of jobs that you shouldn't be impaired when you're conducting them, right? So it could be a health and safety issue.
Mhm.
It could be a supervisor management issue. If you're going to the job impaired, someone else's life may not be at risk, but a physician, a nurse should not be going impaired for anything, right? You can be
Agreed.
impaired for alcohol, you can be impaired for opioids, you can be impaired for cannabis. They should not be impaired at all. And so reasonable suspicion training that I know was brought up yesterday is for a supervisor or other employees to be able to gauge whether said employee or said subordinate is impaired. And if they are impaired, they should be taken offline.
But they're not trained to the degree that you're speaking of because they're not drug recognition experts. And the impairment things that you're talking about, it could look like the employee's tired.
You don't need a drug recognition expert to be able to tell whether someone's impaired or not.
For cannabis use, what is the standard then? What else is the standard? What's the measurable standard?
Impairment is the inability of someone to be able to do their job or job responsibilities properly, right? And so you can be impaired for many different reasons. It doesn't necessarily need to be cannabis. And you can have someone who is a supervisor. Like I said, there's reasonable suspicion training that employers oftentimes will require their supervisors to take to be able to gauge whether an individual is impaired or not, and bring it up to another supervisor, or if they are the supervising or managing authority, to take them offline.
Okay, thank you for that. Could I have the floor leader again, please?
The floor to yield for questions. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. So are firefighters considered government employees?
It depends on the structure and whether or not they're volunteer or not.
Okay. Are career firefighters deemed as government employees?
Most likely, yes.
Senator,
Most likely.
Most likely, yes.
Can you give me an example where it would fall out of the most likely?
Probably Ocean Pines.
It's a possibility they could work for a private organization, but there aren't any in Maryland.
Oh, okay, so there's none. They're all government employees.
Yes.
Okay. And as government employees, are they subject to random urinalysis testing? Just like every other state employee, by the way.
They are subject to random testing in some jurisdictions and post-incident.
And post-incident, yes, that's what I was speaking of yesterday, when they're involved in like a car crash or some type of incident that they would be required to test to urinalysis in that time.
That's
How
right.
does this bill address the inability of having no standard and no test in place to determine the 12-hour window prior to impairment, but we know that any urinalysis that's being requested, whether it be random or during the performance of your duties, is on duty, and we also know that the use of cannabis every other day will show up in such urinalysis?
So if a fireman has a valid certification to use medical cannabis, the employer can take no action solely for the positive cannabis test, assuming no impairment has been alleged or identified. Furthermore, if the fireman has no valid certification to the use of medical cannabis, then the employer can take whatever action is in the employer's policy related to cannabis use, as the bill only authorized the medical use of cannabis by firemen. Also, the employee shall report the incident to the State Emergency Medical Service Board if the fire and rescue public safety employee reports to work while impaired by cannabis. And this was the amendment that we added last year at the request of the senator from the 4th District.
Thank you for that. And actually, you mentioned MIMS. What is MIMS' position on this bill?
I mentioned who?
MIMS, the Medical Emergency Management
System.
They did not submit testimony.
They didn't? Can you look that up? Actually, they did. They did submit.
I'm sorry, it was informational.
Yeah, so, and what they said was that they respectfully submitted, which would prohibit an employer from taking certain discriminatory employment actions against a fire or rescue public safety employee based on the employer's use of employee's use of medical cannabis, and that they need to take into account for the following: that the proposed legislation of the bill would create a statutory inconsistency by requiring that only one type of prohibited conduct out of many be reported to the state EMS board while others are not, that the language impaired by cannabis in the aforementioned proposed subsection is ambiguous and may cause confusion for EMS board, given that there is no definitive way to assess for impairment associated with cannabis use. At a minimum, it would be helpful to provide guidance in this legislation regarding the definition of impairment, and that the state EMS board does not have jurisdiction over firefighters who are also not EMS clinicians, which was the issue that we were talking about earlier. So can we agree that the state MIMS board has concerns with this legislation as crafted?
Well, we don't define impairment while driving while impaired in the criminal law.
We don't? I don't know that that's accurate. As someone that has arrested those who drive impaired in vehicle law, there are certain signs of impairment that are identified and must be substantiated.
I'm being told it's not defined directly in the criminal law.
I'm sorry?
I'm being told by counsel it's not defined directly in the criminal law.
Okay. So now we're moving over into what's defined in criminal law as your supporting dynamic for this exemption for DFRS employees.
Driving while impaired is defined, but impairment is not.
Okay. Did you happen to see, did the Maryland State Firefighters Association chime in on this piece of legislation?
Yes.
And what was their position on this piece of legislation as far as accountability and just overall?
Oh, the professional firefighters supported it. The volunteers did not.
Not the professional. I know they're the ones that put me on blast today. I'm talking about the Maryland State Firefighters Association, the MSFA.
They did present unfavorable testimony.
And what was the grounds of their unfavorable portion? Do you know? The grounds were, I'm sorry, I'll just go ahead and tell you. I don't mean to. The grounds were.
All right, senators, it's getting a little loud. If we could just focus on the senators who have the floor.
Thank you. The testing positive for cannabis could cause the suspension or revocation of the provider's medical license. This is EMS specifically. This is the problem we're talking about. Further, a commercial driver's license is not required to drive fire apparatus. However, for drivers with a commercial driver's license, testing positive for cannabis could also cause losing that CDL. And lastly, determining if a provider is impaired by cannabis is purely subjective. There is no clear direction on how this is to be handled.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, I apologize.
Yeah, firefighters are not required to hold a CDL.
Yeah. That's what I did make that clarification.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to the next concern. So yesterday you mentioned that Howard County has their own policy. Howard County Fire Rescue, right?
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
You said yesterday that Howard County has their own policy regarding this?
Yes, they developed a policy.
And how long has that policy been in place?
Just recently.
Like 3 weeks-ish?
That sounds about accurate, yes.
Yeah. Did the fire chief know that it was being signed off on? The fire chief of Howard County, DFRS, did he know about this, that it was being approved by the county exec?
I don't know the question. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Well, he wasn't aware of it, of his own people that he's supposed to oversee and be responsible for. So why couldn't this type of legislation just be, if they passed it on their own, why couldn't each county do it on their own without having to do this and force it to every county? Because we already have issues with keeping and maintaining current staffing levels in DFRS as it is without this issue. Is there anything that would prohibit a county from apparently doing it on their own without this legislation?
I would say no.
Okay, thank you.
And this provides a standard statewide by doing it at the state level.
But it doesn't. It actually creates a subjective standard and restricts what locals can do. What training do firefighters receive to recognize signs and symptoms of impairment?
I'm going to yield the floor to the senator from the 12th district.
Is he a firefighter?
Senator from the 12th district has the floor.
Sure. So your question was,
what training do firefighters receive to recognize signs and symptoms of impairment?
firefighters oftentimes go through, EMS and paramedic training, and so they have the ability to take vital signs, to understand whether someone is conscious or not. As part of that training, they're also able to identify whether someone's impaired or not. Oftentimes, they may come up to an accident where, a driver may appear to be impaired or not in some way, and they're making a judgment.
So I'm going to go back to the question again. What training do firefighters receive to recognize impairment? If you don't know, you don't know, but do they receive a specific amount of time within the academy to recognize signs and symptoms of cannabis impairment?
I think it's important to dissociate, impairment from a particular substance, because you can be impaired from a lot of different things. And yes, I think firefighters do receive training to be able to identify impairment because they're coming up and responding oftentimes on the rescue side to be able to make that judgment.
Okay, thank you for that. If I could have the floor leader once again, thank you.
For your yield, Senator may proceed.
I do appreciate the opportunity to do this. I apologize, I wasn't in committee that day. I do want to put that out there. I was sick that day, so unfortunately, and then I missed the second reader vote. So I do apologize to the body, but I do want to make sure that these questions are asked because this is an important issue. So my question is, if a firefighter dies in the line of duty or EMS, will this bill and them passing this prohibit, will the feds pay any death benefit to someone that has cannabis in their system to the surviving family?
I don't know the answer to that.
They won't. And will the state of Maryland pay a death benefit with a firefighter or EMS who has cannabis in their system at the time of their death?
I don't know the answer to that.
It's important to know those because we're talking about a job where people lose their lives in service to their community. And the last thing we want is because someone has followed a policy that we're putting in place for a career that they knew this was prohibited to do. There's other avenues to treat stress, anxiety, ailments. So I think it's important to understand, and I appreciate it, Mr. Floor Leader. Mr. President, to close, I think it's important that our DFRS, our EMS, and our firefighter professionals are making life and death decisions every day. They're making split-second decisions that can't be delayed by impairment. Delays in such services, especially to those critically injured, can be deadly. And there's a liability on the municipality or county that employs such a person that would come in with impairment. I'm not saying all of them are going to do that, but passing this creates that potential for an abuse to occur. These public safety DFRS professionals are the tip of the spear at our community's worst moments, going towards danger when many are leaving it. And we must know as a community that we are getting their very best in those moments. And more importantly, our loved ones need to make sure we're getting their best at every moment. And with that, I appreciate the time, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, bills on third reading. Recognize the Senator from District 12.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to remind the body here that I think there's a lot of conflation with different substances and with the ability of individuals who these are public service workers to be able to use medical cannabis just like every other employee here in the state of Maryland. And certainly understand that they're in a safety, an important safety related job. But because of their service, they're also experiencing many significant medically related conditions where cannabis can certainly help. A lot of pain, potentially higher risks of cancer, and other conditions as well. And so they should be afforded the ability to utilize medical cannabis, which we as a body agree that it does help medically for individuals, just like any other employee across the state of Maryland. There's been a lot of conversation here, obviously, about impairment. It doesn't matter whether you're impaired from cannabis, from alcohol, from opioids, from any other medical or mind-altering substance. There is a policy and process in place to deal with employees who are impaired, regardless of the substance. And supervisors and employers are trained to identify any individual, any employee who is impaired through reasonable suspicion training that oftentimes employers are required to conduct. And so whether they're impaired because of opioids, which they should not be either, nobody should be coming to work impaired, and if they are taken offline, and there's a process to proceed with that. And so, I just want the body to remember that there is a process in place to deal with this. We don't want anyone coming impaired. But these are folks that are risking their lives to be able to respond to our families, to residents across the state of Maryland, often in some of their darkest hours. And they deserve the care that, that is permitted to all residents across the state of Maryland. We don't want them going into work not being able to provide their best. And that means they should be able to get the medicine that they need. And so would urge the body to vote green on this, and just also remind folks that this is a bill that did pass the Senate last year. This bill passed the Senate last year. Would urge another green vote on this bill this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any further discussion? Yes,
Yeah, just very briefly, a couple years ago, I sponsored a commission to look at retention and the challenges that we're having with the firefighters. And this was actually one of the recommendations that came out of that commission as one of the areas that would be helpful in overall making sure that we keep our firefighters, that we have these struggles. And as the senator from the 12th mentioned, this is legal, and there were already circumstances where folks need to be able to use this, and this would be helpful for the firefighters, and I just want to express my support for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Recognize the Senator from the 29th.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could just clarify one point with the floor leader, if you'd stand for a question, please.
The floor to yield. Senator may proceed.
So, obviously, when we're talking about emergency situations and we're responding to those, and being a former police officer, we responded to a lot with the fire department, and we went there, and you never knew what you were going to see. Is this, and everybody's about to be quick-witted and thinking and reacting to your training, does this standard apply for police officers?
No. It's only applicable to firefighters, this bill. It doesn't apply to police officers.
So it doesn't apply to police officers?
No.
So, and in my situation, I was an EMT. So I carried, in our police truck, because we worked around the water, we carried the same exact things that the firemen carried. So we treated everybody just like it was an ambulance. Excuse me? So if the firefighter wasn't there, we were the police. So we were treating somebody. So the police could not actually take marijuana and treat somebody in that scene. Is that correct? But we're saying it's okay if you're a firefighter and you showed up to that scene and you would be in an emergency situation where you might be treating a patient. It would be okay to...
This bill is about employment discrimination. Right. If they're using medical cannabis, you can't discriminate against their employment.
My question is the care that any of our constituents or family members might get when somebody is impaired potentially by taking medical marijuana and being able to go to a scene, right, and respond, because there is no standard. I know we heard some testimony or some back and forth about the fact that there's a standard and you could tell if somebody's intoxicated or under the influence, and I've got to say, I was very subjective. Having been one of the first ever drug recognition experts in the state of Maryland, I'm going to tell you that you have to spend a lot of time sometimes with people to determine their impairment. And I question the fact that you could just easily look at somebody and go, yes, they're impaired and they shouldn't be here, we've got to pull them out, right? I really do question the fact when we see a fireman, when in my former role, when I was running across the wherever to go help somebody, want that person fully up to speed to help. And I just don't understand how we're saying, well, it's real easy, and everybody, all these firemen have this training to know this, because when I was certified and I was a policeman doing that activity, we had no training about how I could just look at somebody and say, yes, they're impaired, they shouldn't be here, right? And have,
Was there a question?
So the question is, I just think we're setting up a different standard for first responders, right? If we're going different for the police and different for the fire, and your answer is that it's different, and that's what we're doing, and that's my question. Thank you.
All right. Yes, recognize the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just sitting here getting a few answers that were asked, if I can just reply.
Senator,
so, yes, firefighters are trained as general clinicians, and advanced training is available for cannabis, so they can recognize impairment. And, police officers do field sobriety tests, so they don't, when they pull you over, if they think you're impaired, there's certain steps in a field sobriety test. So that's the same training that a supervisor at the fire department can do. I just want to remind you that most of the firefighters in our state work one day and they're off 3. They're looking for relief from pain that's not opioids. They're looking for some other relief. So if they work on Monday and take cannabis on Tuesday or Wednesday, and if they had a blood test on Thursday, now it's no longer impairing them, but by Thursday it's still in their blood because the half-life is 30 days. And so, we've had this bill a number of years. We have firefighters who do experience a lot of physical trauma and a lot of pain. And this is being done in Pittsburgh, it's being done in Howard County. We're trying to help our firefighters, and they're not going to come to work impaired. They're more responsible than that. But we need to help them with the pain on the days that they're off. And I ask for support on this bill.
All right, thank you, Senator. Bill's on third reading, final passage. If there's no further discussion, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 439, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, that does it. The desk is clear. So we've got a bunch of work done today. We're in a pretty good spot. Let's go ahead and check with calendars. Chair of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, we were going to meet at noon. I think the Senate Finance Committee is going to
Well, we were meeting, just in a different way.
Yeah, we're meeting in a different way. So Senate Finance will meet at 1 o'clock. We only have 4 bills and 32 witnesses today, but we'll meet at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair of Education, Energy, and the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, there's been a lot of press recently on the topic of utility supplemental transmission projects and the unique approval process these projects go through. So we're going to have an oversight hearing today in AAE to get some idea of this process and what's involved. We'll meet at 1:15 to start that oversight hearing. 1:15.
1:15, AAE. All right, Chair of Budget and Tax.
Thank you, Mr. President. All 3 of our subcommittees will meet at 1:15.
1:15. Just know we have one presentation at the end tonight, or at the end of we want to get through all our announcements, and we have one presentation at the end. So just as we're thinking about timing. Chair of Judicial Proceedings.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The Judicial Proceedings Committee will meet on Monday at 1 p.m. for a voting session.
Monday, 1 p.m. Excellent. All right. Let's see. Do we have any further standing committees, select committees, delegations? Yes, Chair of the Baltimore County Delegation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Monday at 3 o'clock, the Baltimore County Senate delegation will meet in our usual place. Thank you.
Excellent. Executive nominations?
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, the executive nominations will be meeting on Monday at 5 o'clock. So we're looking forward to seeing you there. Thanks.
Back in the saddle. Baltimore City Delegation.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Monday at 4 o'clock, Baltimore City Delegation will be meeting for a voting session.
All right. Any further delegations or caucuses? Any other, we have protocol. Let's do protocol.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, colleagues, this group of pages are completing their week with us, or second week with us, and their time with us this session. So we just wanted to take this opportunity to thank them for their help this week. And with that,
if we could ask the minority leader and majority leader, please join us at the front. We have resolutions. Okay, great. Thank you. Rochelle has them. All right.
We'll recognize them one by one. The first, Maya Apt from Baltimore County, District 8, Perry Hall High School. Next, William Andrioni, Anne Arundel County, District 31, a student at Severna Park High School. Daniel Cornicher from Hartford County, District 34, a student at Joppatown High School. Tracy Espinoza from Montgomery County, District 15, a student at Watkins Mill High School. Samaya Laguda from Baltimore County, District 10, a student at Randallstown High School. Gabrielle Moore Brooks from Hartford County, District 34, Aberdeen High School. And finally, Samantha Toth from Prince George's County, District 24, a student at Bowie High School. Let's give them a round of applause.
Excellent. We may want to shift down to your right a little bit so we can center up. A fellow Bowie grad. Yeah. All right, excellent. Well, thank you so much to our pages. You did a wonderful, wonderful job. We are so very proud of your work. We thank you, thank you, thank you. Keep up the great work, and we wish you the best as you move forward into your academic adventures. We know that you all will represent the state of Maryland incredibly, incredibly well. Thank you. Let's see. Yes, I recognize the chair of the Judicial Proceedings Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Blame my last announcement. We're going to meet at 4 o'clock on Monday for voting.
4 o'clock on Monday. 4 o'clock on Monday for Judicial Proceedings. Yes, Executive Noms?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, Baltimore County, District 10 will be hosting District Night on Monday, the 9th at 5 o'clock, and we're extending an invitation to the whole body, so we're looking forward to seeing you there. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator, very much. Thank you. We had, we do have a non-member but part of the family series of birthdays this weekend for our Sergeant at Arms and our incredible troopers. Turns out they are both getting very old. They're getting very, very old. So James and Steve, who both have birthdays this upcoming weekend. So if we could wish them a warm. Trooper Stewart is especially old this year, so yes. He's 2 months older than me, so or a month and a half. All right, if we could, are any other announcements? Any other announcements? If not, let's recognize the senator from the 38th District, please.
Today, I rise in a positive fashion with Women's History Month. I rise as a daughter of the American Revolution during America's 250th anniversary to recognize a remarkable Maryland woman leader, Mary Catherine Goddard, a woman who shaped history and whose name appears on the Declaration of Independence. Mary Catherine Goddard's story is a fascinating one that continues to inspire all Marylanders and Americans, as she was a key figure and patriot of the American Revolution. Born in 1738 in Connecticut, Mary Catherine Goddard learned the family printing trade alongside her brother and her mother before moving to Baltimore. In 1773, her brother established the Maryland Journal and the Baltimore Advertiser, and within a year, Miss Goddard moved to Baltimore to take over the New Plant and newspaper. In this position, Mary Catherine Goddard was a fierce advocate for the patriot cause, The Smithsonian highlights that she editorialized against British brutality, she reprinted Thomas Paine's Common Sense, and she published extra editions about Congress's call to arms and the Battle of Bunker Hill. In her 23-year publishing career, Mary Catherine Goddard earned a place in history as one of the most prominent publishers during the nation's revolutionary era. In July of 1775, she was appointed Postmaster of Baltimore, becoming the first Postmaster of Baltimore, the first Postmaster in the colonies, and eventually the first female Postmaster in the United States. During the Revolution, she helped maintain the flow of communication and the movement of critical information, which was essential to the American victory. Her most historic contribution came during one of the most pivotal moments in American history, when the Continental Congress relocated to Baltimore during the war. Miss Goddard served as its official printer. In January of 1777, she printed a new edition of the United States Declaration of Independence, the first to include the names of the signers. And at the bottom of the document, she added, Baltimore in Maryland, printed by Mary Catherine Goddard. From Mary Catherine Goddard's press came the first printed copy of the Declaration of Independence to include the names of the signers. Mary Catherine Goddard also experienced hardship when, after her years of patriotic service, she was removed from her position after the ratification of the new U.S. Constitution by the U.S. Postmaster. While political reasons most likely drove the decision, she was told that she was being relieved on the grounds that someone was needed who could visit and superintend the Southern Department of the Postal System, and authorities at the time believed that this responsibility involved more traveling than a woman could manage. It speaks volumes of the character and integrity of Mary Catherine Goddard that over 200 leading businessmen of Baltimore endorsed her petition to the Postmaster General to retain her position. And though she was not reinstated, she went on to become a successful bookshop operator in Baltimore. Her determination reflected the same spirit of perseverance that drove the American Revolution. Mary Catherine Goddard continued her work as a printer and bookseller for the remainder of her life, contributing to the spread of ideas that shaped our new nation. And my colleagues, her story reminds us that the revolution was fought beyond the battlefield. Wins were made in print shops, homes, churches, and communities by individuals who believed deeply in the promise of the new nation. Maryland is proud to claim women like Miss Catherine Goddard, like Mary Digits Lee, who organized women across the state to supply the Continental Army, and Rebecca Flower Young, whose flag making helped create the symbols of American independence. The courageous efforts of these women leaders from Maryland contributed to the founding of the United States of America. On a personal note, I have been moved with a special connection to Mary Catherine Goddard. I was born in Baltimore, where she made her mark with the first printing of the Declaration of Independence with the signers included, where she bravely editorialized against the British and for the American patriots, stood up for the American patriots, and made sure the flow of critical information benefited the patriots. I admire her tenacity, her esprit de corps, and her complete dedication in holding these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. May Mary Catherine Goddard continue to inspire us all, and may God bless Maryland, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Well said. Very well said. Very well said. Recognize the senator from the 11th District.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I ask that we journalize the remarks of the good senator from the Eastern Shore.
Most certainly. Without objection, we will certainly journalize those wonderful remarks and appreciate the excellent history. I wasn't very familiar with that story. Very helpful. Thank you very much. All right. I think that does it for today. Let's do a quorum call.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 44 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session, recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until Monday, March 9th at 8 p.m.
8 p.m. Without objection, so ordered. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Stay safe and enjoy your loved ones.